There is no guarantee for success, but there are ways to get closer to it when you do the right things. Who you surround yourself with is just as important as what you do. Finding the right people, the right classes, the right activities, and taking the right tests are all decisions that shape your future. Find out more today on Destination University with Dr. Cyntria Colon. Dr. Colon and her guests will give you the tips you need, whether you're a student, parent, or educator. Now, here is your host, Dr. Cyntria Colon.
You're listening to Destination University. We're running a special series, 30 Teens and 30 Dreams. And today, for the next 4 episodes, you're going to meet Janah and her journey through the college admission process, starting when she was very young in elementary school. If you are a college-bound teen or a champion of one, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Janah hails from Chicago, Illinois, and she attends Walter Payton College Preparatory School, and she's going to tell you her journey. And before we do that, I'm going to say a quick word about bigfuture.org. Our friends over at bigfuture.org, what is it? It's a free, mobile-friendly personal guide to the college admission process. There, you can explore careers, plan for college, and even learn how to pay for college. And who doesn't need to know how to pay for college, which we'll get to certainly in this next 4 episodes with Janah. So Janah here had big dreams. She set out for herself when she was very young. And her mother told me a story once. And she said, when Janah was about 8 years old, she was asked by a stranger what she wanted to be when she grew up. And the answer is going to surprise you, but I'll let Janah tell you that story. Okay, Janah, sound check. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, well, let's get down to the star of our show, Janah. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I know you're in Chicago, and hopefully the weather is, treating you well. It's not. Well, welcome to the show, Janah. And your story is one for the books. And I have worked with thousands of students over the course of nearly 20 years, but yours really sticks out. And I want our readers, our watchers, our viewers, if you're listening or watching, to really understand who you are and where you come from. So why don't you just go ahead and jump in and start from even before you got to high school. Who was Janah when she was 6, 7, 8 years old?
Yes, so of course I'm Janah. I am from Chicago, Illinois, and growing up, I live in a very religious household. We are Christians, and so our faith is very important to me and my family, and so that has been essential to me growing up, going to church every week, Wednesday night Bible studies. That's one of the pillars of my life. But also, I guess something about me, or sort of unique, is I live in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Chicago, but I am not one of the wealthiest people in this city. So I live in a mostly white neighborhood. It's wealthy, although my family is Black and middle income. And that's a demographic of most people, or basically all the people that live in my building. It's a Black building, middle income. And so growing up, I went to a predominantly white school, and I had to navigate that world, being someone who was different from my peers racially, but also socioeconomically. And ultimately, I was different from other people, but I didn't feel ostracized. I didn't feel inferior or lesser than, but I was able to connect with people who are totally different from me. And I invested in my academic abilities because they served as equalizers between me and my peers. And so that is how I learned to navigate. And my talents, speaking and performing arts, those are some of the things that have distinguished me.
Well, so from Chicago, Illinois, in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods, but you yourself don't reap those benefits, so to speak. And you're sitting there in your pink bubblegum bedroom right now, which I just love, and I've known since you were just out of sophomore year. And share with us a little bit about sort of literally where you live, and I think you share a room, and what does that what does that do for your family? I mean, I'm certain that brings you closer, but also you have to navigate also literally your surroundings. So talk about that.
Yes, so I do share a room with my younger sister. And so there's 5 people in my house, a younger brother and a younger sister and 2 parents, my mom and dad. Although I do have an older sister, but she's out of the house. But yeah, my building, like I mentioned before, it's mostly Black and middle income, but it's not like the buildings that a lot of my friends grew up in. There's no doorman, we don't have a pool, there's no gym, no rooftop. And so, again, living in this neighborhood, but not having the same lifestyle. And so it's very small in a lot of ways. My family has outgrown where we live, but because in Chicago there's neighborhood schools, this is a great neighborhood, again, reaping those benefits of other people. And so we live here in a great neighborhood, a safe neighborhood, and go to a great school, elementary school. And so um, that's that's where I've lived my entire life. This building here.
Ooh, good. Well, so I teased the audience with that story of when you were young. So there are 2 stories I want you to reference. And one is when you asked your mom, what is the best college? And then the second one is when someone, a stranger, I think, in a store asked you, hello, little girl, or whatever, and what do you want to be when you grow up? So tell those 2 stories so our viewers really understand what you were shooting for, even at a young age.
Yes. So as a little girl, my mom tells me this story, and I'm remembering it as best as I can. She knows it perfectly, but as a little girl, I was in the car in the back seat. My mom's driving, and I asked her, "What is the best college?" And I guess randomly, my mom didn't know, and she didn't go to neither of my parents went to super prestigious schools. And my mom was the first person in her family to go to college. My dad went a few, so they didn't know too much about college or even the top 20 or so colleges. But my mom knew Harvard because everyone knows Harvard. And so my mom says Harvard is the best school. And then I decided that that is where I wanted to go, that since Harvard is the best, that's where I should be. And so I began to strive to go to Harvard. And every time someone asked me, I said that all of the peers at my school knew that I wanted to go to Harvard.
Oh my goodness. So you're sitting in the back seat, probably driving to church is my guess. And does she tell you like how old was that? How old were you then?
I remember wanting to go to college or to Harvard super young. So I was probably like in first grade. I remember wanting to go to Harvard forever. So as long as I can remember, I said that I wanted to go to Harvard.
Wow. And okay. So, and I imagine you and maybe even your mom had no clue, like just what were the chances of that, right? But you were already dreaming and putting it in your head set at a very, like first grade, second grade. So, okay. And your mom never once flinched and discouraged you from dreaming of that, correct?
Never, no. It was never outside of my realm of possibility. And my parents never said that it was too hard or unlikely. So I thought I could do it.
Well, that's the first golden nugget. Actually, she's probably dropped a few golden nuggets already, but my viewers and listeners all know that I say take notes. So there you have it, parents. Don't discourage. It was just never outside of her realm of possibility. Oh, what a great thing. Okay, so tell us a story. So you're in a store and someone asks you, what do you want to be when you grow up? So tell the story the way your mom tells it.
So this might have been in the hair salon, because that's another place I spent a lot of time growing up. So the hair salon, someone asked me, um, what do I want to be when I grow up? Probably a question I've been asked a lot. And so I said boldly, not knowing that this was a lofty goal, I said that I wanted to become the president of the United States. And the lady, knowing more about the world than I did at the time, was shocked, taken aback, and that was outside of her realm of possibility. And so she was like, okay, well, maybe we can do something. And she named something like lesser than the president of the United States. And so um, I don't think she was trying to discourage me, but she knows and knew at that time what it meant for a little Black girl to aspire to become the president.
Okay, so this story I just love, and I remember it being one of the first stories your mom shared with me when we met again right after your sophomore year, and I'm always been curious to know, like, where did that come from, right? How does an eighth 8 year old, not eighth grade, 8 year old kid even come up with that idea? How do you remember where you got that from, or I don't know, where the idea come from?
I have no idea. I think that I've always had a spirit of excellence. And growing up, I grew up with a Black president. So I think in some ways that I internalized that. I'm 2008. I was probably like in kindergarten or so. So I grew up seeing a Black man being the president. So I think maybe I internalized that, um, and I knew that could happen. But I think also I just always felt and knew that I should have the best of the best. And maybe I learned that in preschool. I went to to an all Black preschool, and it was a school of excellence. They expected so much from us 4 and 5 year olds. And they treated us um, as if we were learning at a higher level than we should have. And so they expected much of us. So I'm not sure. I think I've always felt this way.
Well, it's so, for someone that's, my age, you, I forget that someone like you did grow up with a Black president. That's all you knew, at a very young age. And someone, those of us who are older have the history of knowing that's so rare, right? And it took so long to get there. So, okay, so I get it now. I get it. So you see someone who looks like you, and that gives you hope. And you, of course, are shooting for the best college, Harvard. And why not shoot to be the most powerful person in the world, right? That seems to go right along with your MO, Janah. So this episode is really about vision, and Janah and I are both of women of faith, but I put myself in the category of junior varsity Catholic, and Janah might be a varsity. So she's taught me a lot of these verses, but there's a verse in the Bible that talks about making the vision plain and clear. And so talk about that, and when when you knew to sort of create a vision board, or when was that, and lead us up to as you enter, eighth grade.
Yes. So that, like I said, I live in a very religious or faith driven, the word that I like to use most, but faith driven house. So yeah, Habakkuk 2:2, write the vision and make it plain. But then that verse also says, so that the men that have it can run with it. So you write the vision, you run with it, you have a game plan for your life. And so um, oh, also with vision comes provision, which is, direction from God, which, um, and God shows you how to achieve the vision. And so the idea of writing your visions or speaking it into existence, declaring it, is is a major part of my household. And so I grew up knowing that if I wanted something, I should speak it into existence. And I think maybe the first few times when I started to exercise my faith was in 6th grade in debate. I wanted to do well, and so what I started to do was write scripture down that had to do with me winning debate tournaments or doing well with my partner. And I simply looked it up. What does the Bible say about teamwork? What does the Bible say about success, about speaking? And I wrote it down, and that was my way of writing that vision, making it plain, and then learning scripture, of course. And then I wrote a prayer to go with it. And so I was reminding myself, but I believe when you write it down, and I guess science tells us this also, when we write notes down, we better remember it, but that also makes it within my realm of possibility. And so that was then when I started to use my faith, and later I used it in eighth grade to get into to high school.
Okay, so this is so important that students who are watching and parents, if you're watching or listening, to pass this on. I mean, I believe in this fully, that writing it down and then speaking it into existence, your brain has a way of almost going after and chasing after those things and pulling them into your world and making the path very clear and in front of you. And maybe that's God, and maybe that's whatever you believe in, whatever you want to say, sort of the universe doing its role. So you are doing this actively, and you're still young, you're in middle school, and you set your goal. So understand, everyone who's listening, watching, that Janah has opportunity to go to public schools, but there are also schools that she has to apply to get into that are here in California, we might call them charter schools, but they're in Chicago. Explain, Janah, to our viewers and listeners, what it meant and what you had your eyes set on in terms of now you're in eighth grade and now you're applying to high schools. Tell us that process and what happened.
Yes, so going in my middle school, it's a very, to some degree, competitive. The parents know a lot about these things. Maybe they went to great colleges and things like that. They have lots of money. So the high school process and middle school was seen as a way to get to college. And so it's really intense. There are public schools, of course. And so what I wanted to do was go to a selective enrollment school, which is a public school. It functions as magnet school. But the way that you do is it's comprised of seventh grade grades, seventh grade standardized test scores, and then eighth grade selective enrollment test. And all those things add up, and you have to meet a benchmark score to get into a certain school. So each school has a benchmark score that you have to meet. So the school that I wanted to go to was Walter Payton, the best school in the city. It's nationally ranked. I think last year was 4. This year we're 6. So it's a very hard school to get into, but a great school, a great high school. And so again, use my faith to get into Payton. And the way that it works is you have to rank the schools. And so I put Payton first, knowing that it had the highest benchmark score, then Whitney Young, which is where Michelle Obama went. And then the rest of the schools, they don't matter. But so Whitney Young had the second highest benchmark score, or maybe another school, but in my case, it was the second highest. And so my score was really high, but it was a few points off from the Payton benchmark. And so it was enough to get into Whitney Young. And I was devastated. It was a lot for a little eighth grader, but there was still a possibility to get into Payton. It's called principal's discretion. You write a letter to the principal. In some ways, it functions as a personal narrative. It is a personal narrative, but you write it to the principal. You get letters of recommendation. I think I had maybe 4 or 5 from different teachers, debate coach, a 7th grade teacher, French teacher. I was really passionate about French in middle school, principal, and a community member. So, and then I had to create a portfolio with pictures and I was very involved. I did debate team. I was on like the play and in the plays at my school. I did a lot of things. So collected all those things in my awards and I sent it in. And I think maybe the last month of school, I got my letter and I got into Payton. And so the chances of getting in through principal discretion are very low. But I did get in, and I did a similar faith journey.
Wow. Okay, so I only knew like the end of the story, right? I knew, obviously, I've only known you since you've been at Payton. But what a journey to have to like get, basically, I see this as like you were, in college terms, you were sort of rejected or denied, but then you sort of appealed or had an opportunity to appeal. And not probably everybody appeals, because at some point you go, some people might say, well, I'm fine going to this other school, and they just let it go. But you were like, I'm going to fight for what I want. And you had been writing your vision down. And this was part of your vision. Part of your vision was to go to Peyton and help carve possibly a slightly easier path to your road to Harvard. So you got in. Do you remember the day that you got that notification?
I do, actually. So it was the day we came back from Colorado, our 8th grade trip. And so everybody was on the bus checking theirs, but I wanted to check with my parents. And so everyone was saying, I didn't get in, I got in, blah, blah. And people were doing principal's discretion to a range of schools. And so I got in the car, and my mom had already opened it because I guess she just couldn't wait until I got back, but she didn't tell me. So I noticed the envelope is open, but hey, I opened it and I screamed. We were in the car. And I screamed. I was just so excited because that was a gruesome process, especially as a 13, 14-year-old. That is very intense. So I was just so blown away. Very thankful to God that I got in.
When is your birthday?
October 19th.
October. So you were 13, I think.
I was 14.
You were 14? Yeah. I mean, that's a lot to carry as a 14-year-old. That is a lot, but you were determined and you had the faith. So, moral of the story, have a vision, make it plain, write it down, share it with the world, meaning put it out into the world with everything that you can. So, yes. Oh my goodness. Okay. So on our next episode, we're going to have Janah walk us through her actual high school experience and all that she had to do to then get to the point where she was ready to apply to places like Harvard. So we call it HYPRS. So stay tuned for our next episode. But here is the truth about what she said today. Write the vision, make it clear, and it comes to be, and stick with it. She had a vision of going to Harvard, or at least applying to Harvard, and she had the vision of becoming president of the United States. And she knew all the steps it was going to take, starting with where she went to high school. Oh, all right. Hang tight, Janah. I'm going to wrap up and then we'll say goodbye for this episode and we'll tune in tomorrow. Oh my goodness. I'm telling you, if this episode has in any way fueled your confidence or helped to build your dreams, and how could it not? Please share this episode with 3 people in the next 30 minutes. And be sure to tune in tomorrow. For parents out there, join us on our Facebook group, Destination University, with a Y-O-U, because the destination is not university. The destination is you. And if Janah isn't a role model for that, I don't know what is. Be sure to tune in for part 2 of a 4-part series with Janah. And right now, Janah, let's just both wave goodbye. Wherever you are, may you have a happy and sunny day. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for listening this week to Destination University. Be sure to join Dr. Cyntria Colon again and get one step closer to your success.